abyss beckons with a chilling call. Come closer, listen to the shadows draw. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid. Tales from the shadows will spook your world. Join us on this journey, let your fears unfurl. Stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
Welcome, friends, to the dark and the deep, where whispers linger and shadows creep. Tales from the shadows, where legends arise, with ghostly stories and myths that mesmerize. We ended the first story of the Denny Wyatt series last time, and today's tale starts part 2 of that series. Without further ado, here is part 1 of Denny Wyatt and the Heart of Niflheim. Denny Wyatt stood on the balcony of his dorm room at Valhalla Prep, looking out over the sprawling grounds that served as both his home and training ground. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an orange and pink hue across the sky, but even this picturesque view did little to ease the storm brewing inside him. It had been a few weeks since they had returned from their harrowing journey to Niflheim, where they had faced their fears and confronted Loki, the god of mischief. While they had emerged victorious, the taste of that victory was bittersweet, tinged with the knowledge that darkness always lurked just out of sight. Behind him, Selene and Freya were engrossed in animated conversation, their laughter ringing through the room, a bright contrast to the heavy thoughts swirling in Denny's mind. He turned back to the view, trying to drown out their voices, yet feeling a pull toward their shared camaraderie. Denny appreciated their laughter. It reminded them how far they had come together. Still, a nagging worry gnawed at him. What did Loki honestly want? Why had he let them go? "Hey, Earth to Denny!" Selene's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her standing with hands on her hips, a teasing smile on her face. "You've been staring off into space for a good 5 minutes, plotting a heroic return to Niflheim?" "Maybe," he replied with a half-smile, though it did little to conceal the tension in his chest. "Just thinking about everything that happened." "Look, we've trained hard since then," Freya said, crossing the room to join them. "We can handle whatever Loki throws at us next. Plus, we have each other. That's what matters." "Yeah," Denny said, trying to project confidence. "Together, we're stronger." The room fell into a comfortable silence, but Denny could feel the weight of unsaid words pressing down on them. The lingering effects of Loki's visit haunted him like a shadow waiting to pounce. They had fought hard, but Denny knew he hadn't truly faced Loki yet, not in the way that mattered. He needed to understand his half-brother's motives, history, and the darkness that clung to him like a shroud. "I just wish we knew what he was planning," Denny finally admitted, breaking the silence. "Loki's not the type to let things go. There's always a twist." Selene's brow furrowed. "Do you think he's plotting something right now? Something worse than before?" "I wouldn't put it past him," Denny replied, crossing his arms. "He's a master at manipulation. He'll exploit our weaknesses if we give him a chance." Freya's eyes narrowed. "Then we can't let him. We have to stay alert and prepare ourselves for anything." As the trio strategized, the atmosphere in the room shifted from light-hearted to severe. Each knew they stood on the precipice of something bigger than themselves. They began to discuss their training regimen and how they could better harness their abilities. Denny felt a surge of determination. He wouldn't let fear dictate their actions. They would be ready, no matter what. The next day, they gathered at the training grounds, their usual spot beneath the ancient oak tree that had witnessed countless training sessions and battles. Denny looked around, taking stock of his friends as they prepared for another day of intense training. Eric joined them, his fiery red hair catching the morning sun. "Ready to kick some serious butt today?" Eric grinned, his confidence contagious. "More like preparing for whatever Loki has in store for us," Denny replied, anxiously flexing his fingers. The training began with a series of warm-up exercises, but as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Denny couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced around, half expecting Loki to materialize from the shadows, but found nothing amiss. Still, the tension hung like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. After an hour of physical training, they moved on to the more strategic aspects of their abilities. Helga, their mentor and a fierce warrior in her own right, gathered them around. Her stern expression commanded respect, and her fiery spirit inspired them all. "Listen up. Today, we're going to work on teamwork," Helga announced, her voice ringing with authority. "Loki may try to drive a wedge between you, but remember, strength lies in unity." "Right," Selene said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Helga assigned them various challenges that required cooperation and strategy. They practiced defensive formations, dodging attacks from simulated enemies while communicating constantly. Each challenge tested their bond, pushing them to work in sync. But Denny found himself distracted, still haunted by Loki's words. "Focus, Denny," Helga barked during one of the drills. "You can't let your thoughts wander. The enemy will exploit any weakness." "Sorry, Helga," Denny mumbled, shaking off the fog in his mind. He resolved to put his fears aside and concentrate. They were a team and needed each other, now more than ever. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the training grounds, they collapsed in a heap, exhausted but exhilarated. They had fought against the odds, but Denny knew they needed to keep pushing themselves. The looming threat of Loki lingered, a reminder that their training was far from over. That evening, as they sat around a campfire, Denny contemplated their future. "What if we face Loki again?" he asked, staring into the flames. "What if he comes back even stronger?" Selene poked at the fire, sending embers flying into the night sky. "We'll be ready," she assured him. "We'll train harder. We'll learn everything we can about him. We won't let him divide us." Freya nodded, her expression serious. "But we also have to understand his motivations. He's not just a villain, he's complex. We need to know how to fight him on his terms." Denny nodded, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination. The journey ahead would be long and challenging, but with his friends by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Denny felt a sense of hope as they shared stories and laughter beneath the stars. They were more than friends. They were a family, forged through trials and tribulations. Together, they would uncover the truth behind Loki's intentions and protect one another from the darkness threatening to engulf them. The following morning, Denny awoke with the sunrise filtering through his window, casting soft beams of light that danced across his room. He stretched, feeling the weight of determination settle in his chest. Today was not just another training day, but a day to delve deeper into Loki's mystery and motivations. Denny resolved to uncover the truth behind his half-brother's intentions. After a quick breakfast, Denny met Selene and Eric outside their dorm, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. "We need to find more information about Loki. Something beyond what we've learned in training," he said, a fire igniting in his eyes. "Do you think the library here has anything?" Selene suggested, her brow furrowed in thought. "There has to be some ancient texts or records that might give us insight." "Good idea," Denny replied, and together they set off toward the grand library of Valhalla Prep. As they entered the library, the scent of wood and ink enveloped them. The shelves stretched high, lined with books on Norse mythology, ancient history, and combat techniques. Denny felt a thrill rush through him, imagining the knowledge hidden within those pages. "I'll check the section on Loki," Denny said, scanning the shelves for titles. "You guys look for anything related to Odin or our lineage. We need to piece together how our families intertwine." Selene nodded and headed toward the section on Norse gods while Eric wandered off to another aisle. Denny pulled a heavy book from the shelf, dust particles swirling in the sunlight as he opened it. The pages were filled with illustrations of gods, battles, and intricate runes that whispered of ancient power. His eyes scanned the text, but a sense of foreboding washed over him as he read. Loki was often portrayed as the trickster, the deceiver, and the one who caused chaos. But there were also hints of a deeper narrative, stories of betrayal and family ties tangled like the branches of Yggdrasil. "Denny!" Selene's voice broke through his concentration, and he looked up to see her running toward him, her face lit with excitement. "You have to see this!" She handed him a thin, leather-bound book. Its cover was worn, but the pages were crisp. "It's a journal from one of the Valkyries." She wrote about her encounters with Loki and his motivations. Denny's heart raced as he flipped through the pages, each entry revealing a glimpse into the mind of the god of mischief. The Valkyrie had detailed encounters where Loki had helped the gods, yet his actions often came with a price. It became clear that his mischief was not merely for chaos, it was rooted in a desire for recognition, a longing to belong. "He's not just a villain, he's complicated," Denny murmured, absorbing the information. "He wants to be seen, to be acknowledged. It makes me wonder what he feels about us, about me." Celine's eyes softened. "He's your brother, Denny, but that doesn't mean you have to understand him or forgive him. You have to be careful." "I know," Denny replied, feeling empathy and wariness. "But if I can understand him, maybe I can find a way to reach him, to help him. He may not see the family connection as a bond, but as a curse." Eric joined them as they continued to read, his arms loaded with books. "What did I miss?" "Loki's history," Celine explained. "It's more intricate than we thought. He has reasons for his actions, but that doesn't excuse what he's done." "Let's not forget that he's dangerous," Eric interjected. "We can't afford to get too close to his twisted sense of family." The trio spent the rest of the day poring over texts, piecing together the puzzle of Loki's life. They learned about his early days with the Aesir, his bond with Odin, and the betrayal that led him down a dark path. The weight of understanding settled on Denny's shoulders. He felt a connection to Loki that was both exhilarating and terrifying. As evening approached, they decided to take a break from the library, their minds buzzing with information. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a beautiful backdrop to their thoughts. "I think we should talk to Helga about this," Denny said as they stepped outside. "She might have more insights, or even know about any prophecies related to Loki." Celine nodded, her expression serious. "It's worth a shot. We need to be prepared for anything." As they headed toward the training grounds, Denny felt a sense of purpose ignite within him. They were on the brink of discovering something monumental, something that could change the course of their battle against Loki. The more they learned about him, the better equipped they would face the darkness threatening their world. Once at the training grounds, they found Helga amid a sparring session with students. She moved with precision and grace, her every movement showcasing the strength from years of experience. When she finished, she wiped the sweat from her brow and turned to them, her expression shifting from exhaustion to curiosity. "Ah, Denny, Celine, Eric, what brings you here? I hope it's not just to gawk at my impressive skills," she teased, a twinkle in her eye. Denny exchanged a glance with his friends, then stepped forward, the journal clutched in his hands. "Helga, we've been researching Loki. We found some insights about his past and his motivations. We think it's crucial to understand him better." Helga raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Loki is a complex figure indeed. What have you discovered?" Denny launched into an explanation, recounting their findings and the nuances of Loki's character. Helga listened intently, nodding as they spoke. When Denny finished, she considered their words carefully. "You've made a wise choice in seeking knowledge," she said, her voice serious. "Understanding our enemy is the first step toward defeating him. But be wary. Loki's intentions can be as shifting as the tides." "Do you have any insights on prophecies or warnings about him?" Celine asked, leaning closer, her eagerness palpable. Helga's expression darkened. "There are whispers of a prophecy that speaks of a great divide, a battle that will determine the fate of the realms. But the details are murky. The more you delve into Loki's past, the more threads you will find tangled in the fabric of fate." Denny felt a chill run down his spine. "What if we're part of that prophecy?" "Then we must prepare," Helga said, her gaze steady. "Train harder, strengthen your bonds. In the face of uncertainty, you must stand united." As they left the training grounds, Denny felt a new sense of purpose filling him. The puzzle pieces were slowly coming together, but he knew they had only scratched the surface of what lay ahead. With each passing day, Loki's shadow loomed larger, but Denny was determined to face it with his friends. That night, as Denny lay in bed, his mind raced with thoughts of what would come. The desire to protect his friends, to stand against the darkness that threatened their world, burned brightly within him. He knew their journey would be fraught with challenges, but together they would uncover the truth behind Loki's intentions and face whatever darkness awaited them. The following day, The sun rose over Valhalla Prep, casting golden rays across the grounds and illuminating the faces of the students gathered for training. Denny, Celine, and Eric stood together, their spirits high but their minds sharp with the weight of their recent discoveries. Today, they would hone their combat skills and strategize based on what they had learned about Loki. "All right, team," Denny said, his voice brimming with determination. "Today's focus is on teamwork and communication. We must be in sync, especially if Loki tries to manipulate us." "Got it," Eric replied, his fists clenched in anticipation. "Let's show him what we're made of." As they moved to the training area, the air crackled with energy. Helga stood at the center, her presence commanding attention. "Listen up," she called, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Today, we'll focus on sparring techniques that require strength and strategy. Each of you will partner up and take turns defending and attacking. Remember, use your surroundings to your advantage and communicate." Denny paired up with Celine, while Eric teamed with another student, ready to test their skills. Denny felt excitement surge through him as he faced Celine, who was already warming up, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Let's show them what we've got," Celine said with a smile, her confidence infectious. As they began their sparring session, Denny quickly realized how much they had improved since their last training. They moved fluidly, weaving around each other, executing moves that felt more natural and instinctual. Denny focused on the rhythm of their movements, tuning into Celine's energy and anticipating her strikes. "Nice move," Denny called out as Celine spun gracefully, narrowly avoiding his jab and countering with a swift kick. "Thanks! But watch out," she replied, launching a feint that had Denny momentarily distracted, allowing her to land a playful tap on his shoulder. Okay, point for you." Denny laughed, shaking off the playful banter. They pushed each other, testing their limits while remembering to communicate, which was the essence of their training. After several rounds, Helga called for a break, and the students gathered around her, panting but exhilarated. "You've shown great progress today, but remember, while strength is important, strategy will always win battles. Loki will use every trick in the book to sow doubt and division among you." Denny caught Celine's eye, their unspoken understanding echoing between them. They knew that if Loki aimed to manipulate them, their trust in each other would be their greatest asset. Helga continued, "Next, we're going to practice defensive formations. These will allow you to protect each other while maintaining a strong front. The more you rely on one another, the less vulnerable you'll become." Denny felt a swell of pride as he looked at his friends. They had each other's backs, which Loki would never understand. They formed groups and practiced various formations, focusing on shielding one another during an attack. Denny took charge of his group, guiding them through the motions. "Okay, let's try to keep a tight formation. The rest must create a barrier if one of us is attacked." As they practiced, Denny felt a newfound clarity. His thoughts turned to Loki, who thrived on discord and deceit. This fueled his resolve to strengthen their bonds, not just as warriors, but as friends. After hours of rigorous training, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The group settled down for a quick debrief with Helga, who seemed pleased with their progress. "Excellent work today," she said, nodding approvingly. "But remember, the real challenge will be using these skills in unpredictable situations. I want you to think of scenarios where you might have to rely on one another in a pinch." As the students dispersed, Denny pulled Celine and Eric aside. "What do you think Loki will do next? He's not one to sit back and watch us grow stronger." Eric shrugged, looking severe. "He'll probably try to undermine us. He knows we're stronger together, so he'll seek ways to create doubt." "I think we need to confront that doubt head-on," Celine suggested. "What if we plan a training session to simulate an encounter with Loki? We can put ourselves in those high-stress situations and see how we react." Denny nodded, feeling the excitement build within him. "That's a great idea. We can work on countering his tricks and ensuring we don't fall into his traps." "Let's talk to Helga about it," Eric said, his expression shifting to one of determination. "We need to make this as realistic as possible." They approached Helga, who was cleaning up the training area, and Denny quickly explained their plan. "We want to simulate a confrontation with Loki, We need to prepare ourselves for his mind games. Helga considered their proposal, her brow furrowing in thought. It's a wise approach. However, be warned, Loki's tricks are unpredictable. You must remain focused and trust in each other. Denny felt a rush of determination. We will. We're stronger together. With Helga's approval, the trio began brainstorming ideas for their training session. They wanted it to be challenging, pushing them to their limits while forcing them to rely on one another entirely. As dusk fell and the stars twinkled above, they met in the courtyard, a sense of camaraderie surrounding them. They discussed their ideas, bouncing suggestions off one another, and soon, their excitement transformed into a tangible plan. Let's start with a surprise attack scenario, Selene proposed. One of us could play Loki, and the rest must defend against his tricks. Perfect, Denny replied. It'll allow us to think on our feet and test our ability to communicate under pressure. As they continued planning, Denny's heart swelled with pride at the thought of how far they had come. They were no longer just students training for combat, but a cohesive unit preparing for the inevitable trials ahead. That night, as Denny lay in bed, he couldn't shake the feeling of impending confrontation. Knowing Loki's cunning weighed heavily on his mind, yet he felt more prepared than ever. He had his friends by his side. Together, they would face whatever darkness awaited them. The following day, they would embark on their simulation, stepping into the shoes of heroes ready to confront a trickster god. Denny's resolve strengthened, knowing that understanding their enemy was only part of the battle. They had to be prepared to outsmart him, just as he would surely try to outsmart them. The sun rose early the next day, its rays piercing through the morning mist that hung over Valhalla prep. Denny awoke with a surge of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day they would put their training to the test against the embodiment of deception itself, Loki. He quickly dressed, a sense of purpose guiding his every move. As he made his way to the courtyard, he felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. He found Selene and Eric already waiting, their expressions reflecting the same resolve. You ready for this? Denny asked, trying to keep his voice steady. More than ready, Eric replied, his fists clenched in excitement. Let's show him we won't be easily fooled. Selene nodded, adjusting her gear. We've prepared for this. Remember to communicate, trust each other, and don't let his tricks distract you. Helga arrived moments later, her presence immediately commanding the attention of the students gathered around. I see you're all eager for today's training. Remember, this is not just about combat, it's about psychological resilience. Loki will play with your minds as much as your bodies. Denny felt a thrill run through him. He had heard stories of Loki's cunning, how he could twist reality with mere words. He had to be ready for anything. Helga continued, I want you to split into 2 groups. One will play the defender, and the other will take on the role of Loki. The goal is to disrupt the defender's communication and confuse them. Use everything you've learned. After a brief discussion, they decided Denny would lead the defenders, while Eric would play Loki's role. Selene would be Denny's right hand, offering support and insight as they faced the onslaught of tricks. Let's make this as realistic as possible, Denny said, rallying his team. Stay sharp and don't forget our training. We need to think strategically and support each other. With the plan set, they moved to the training grounds, where Helga outlined the parameters of the exercise. The defenders must hold a position within this marked area. The attackers will try to breach it using any means necessary. Ready yourselves. Denny's heart raced as he took his place at the front of the defenders. Selene stood beside him, her gaze fixed ahead, while the rest of their team formed a protective line behind them. Here we go, Denny whispered, steeling himself for what would come. The air was tense as Eric and the other Loki actors launched their attack. At first it seemed straightforward. They charged forward, but then Eric, with a mischievous grin, began to employ cunning tactics. He mimicked the voices of their friends from behind the lines, creating disorientation and sowing seeds of doubt among the defenders. Denny, I need help over here, one of the attackers called, sounding precisely like Selene. Denny's heart dropped and he turned, instincts kicking in. Selene, stay where you are, he shouted, but the momentary hesitation confused him. Focus, Selene urged, her voice clear despite the chaos around them. Denny, We need to hold the line. Denny clenched his jaw, forcing himself to push through the disarray. Regroup, form a wall. Celine, take point, he commanded, drawing on his training. He focused on the faces of his friends around him, grounding himself in their presence. As the simulation continued, Eric intensified his tactics. He darted around, throwing illusions and false threats, mocking their defenses. Is that the best you can do? I thought you were the children of gods, he taunted, his voice dripping with mischief. Don't listen to him, Denny shouted, trying to cut through the distractions. Remember our training. Stay united. Slowly, the defenders began to regain their composure. Celine took a step forward, ready to counter Eric's illusions. Denny, let's split into 2 teams. You take the left flank, I'll cover the right. We can surround him. Denny felt a rush of pride at her suggestion. Great idea, let's move. Denny saw Eric struggling to maintain his illusions against their unity as they maneuvered. Denny and Celine coordinated their movements flawlessly, complementing each other's strengths. Now, Denny shouted, and they lunged together, pushing through Eric's illusions, their teamwork overpowering his tricks. The climax of the simulation approached as Denny squared off against Eric, who was still attempting to provoke doubt. What will you do when you learn the truth about your family, Denny? What if Loki has more power over you than you realize? Denny took a deep breath, anchoring himself. You don't know anything about me, Loki, he replied, channeling all his focus. You're just a trickster hiding behind illusions. I choose my path and I choose my friends. With that declaration, Denny charged forward, feeling empowered. He executed a series of moves they had practiced, disarming Eric with a swift strike that sent him tumbling backward. Defenders win! Helga's voice boomed, bringing the simulation to a close. The students erupted into cheers, the tension of the exercise melting away into exhilaration. Breathing heavily, Denny turned to Celine and Eric, grinning widely. We did it! That was incredible! Yeah, but we also learned a lot, Celine replied, her expression serious. Loki will use our emotions against us. We must stay sharp and trust one another, no matter what he throws at us. Still catching his breath, Eric added, and we can't underestimate him. He's crafty and unpredictable. We need to be ready for his mind games. Helga approached them, her expression thoughtful. You all did exceptionally well. Remember, the true test is to remain vigilant. Loki will likely respond to this exercise in ways we cannot predict. Be prepared for the unexpected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Denny felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced a simulation of their greatest enemy, and while they had won today, he understood that the real battle lay ahead. That night, as Denny lay in bed, he replayed the day's events in his mind. The thrill of the training exercise invigorated him, but the underlying tension remained. They had learned how to counter Loki's tricks, but the real question loomed. Would their preparations be enough? His thoughts turned to the lessons learned, the bonds strengthened, and the challenges awaited them. Together, they had faced the embodiment of deception and emerged victorious, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Loki's next move would come swiftly. Denny closed his eyes, determination surging within him. They would be ready together. They would face whatever trials lay ahead, stronger and more united than ever. The next few days at Valhalla Prep were a whirlwind of activity. Denny, Celine, and Eric continued to refine their combat skills. Helga gathered the students in the Great Hall for a special announcement on one exceptionally crisp morning. Today marks a significant point in your training, Helga began, her voice commanding attention. We will introduce advanced combat techniques and strategy sessions to prepare you for Loki's unpredictability. But that's not all. Some of you will also receive gifts from the gods. Helga continued. These gifts can enhance your abilities and provide you with the means to protect yourselves. However, remember that with great power comes great responsibility. Use them wisely. Helga motioned for the students to form a line as she finished her speech. One by one, she called them forward to receive their gifts. Celine received a beautifully crafted bow that seemed to hum with power. It's made from the wood of Yggdrasil, she said, awe in her voice. It's said never to miss its target. Eric received a pair of enchanted daggers, their blades glinting with a mysterious light. These are supposed to increase my speed, he declared, testing their weight. I can't wait to try them out. Finally, the moment arrived for Denny. Helga called his name, and he stepped forward. Denny Wyatt, son of Odin, she said, echoing through the hall. You have been chosen to receive a weapon reflecting your heritage and journey ahead. She summoned a magnificent sword with a wave, which glimmered with an ethereal light. This is Gungnir, Helga explained, the spear of Odin, known for its unmatched precision and power. Though it has been reshaped as a sword for you, it carries the weight of your lineage and the expectations of a god's child. Denny reached out, taking the sword in his hands. It felt warm, almost as if it recognized him. Wow, he breathed, his eyes wide with awe. This is incredible. Use it wisely, Helga cautioned. Gungnir is a weapon of great power, but it requires a strong will and a noble heart. Remember, it is not just a tool for battle, but a symbol of your commitment to protecting those you care about. As he returned to join Celine and Eric, he felt a sense of purpose settle within him. I can't believe this, he exclaimed, holding the sword to the light. This is like a dream come true. You'll have to show us how it works, Celine teased, her eyes sparkling excitedly. But first, let's see if it can cut through the chaos that is Loki. With their new weapons in hand, they began their next round of training. Denny practiced with Gungnir, learning to wield it effectively while integrating his movements with his teammates. As the day progressed, the training sessions intensified, pushing each of them to their limits. Nice strike! Eric called out as Denny executed a precise thrust with Gungnir, its tip catching the sunlight. Thanks. This sword feels amazing, Denny replied, a grin spreading across his face. I'm starting to understand how to channel its energy. Their practice continued until they were all breathless, the sun beginning to set in the background. Now that we have our gifts, we need to figure out how to use them to counter Loki, Selene said. Right, Denny agreed, gripping Gungnir tightly. We need to anticipate his moves. He will come at us from unexpected angles, trying to exploit our weaknesses. As they strategized, Denny's thoughts drifted to Odin and the weight of the expectations placed upon him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of a much larger journey. That night, as Denny lay in bed, Gungnir rested beside him, glimmering softly in the moonlight. He couldn't help but feel a sense of connection to his father and the legacy he carried. With a final thought of determination, he closed his eyes, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. This tale continues next time on Tales from the Shadows, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Until next time, stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
This has been Tales from the Shadows, where the shadows speak the stories that will make you weak. Join us on this journey into the unknown. Tales from the shadows, where fear is shown. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid.